Have you ever stood there silent after someone's words cut just deep enough to sting? Maybe it was a joke disguised as honesty, or that subtle tone that told you they didn't respect you. You felt the heat rise in your chest, the urge to defend yourself, to prove them wrong, but something inside whispered, "Don't," because reacting would only feed them. Some people live for that. They test your calm, push your patience, and wait for you to lose control. That's their game. But the moment you explode, they win. The Stoics understood this long before psychology ever named it. Power doesn't belong to the one who strikes first. It belongs to the one who doesn't flinch, the one who can turn insult into silence, disrespect into reflection. In this lesson, we're not going to shout back. We're going to answer differently, with words so calm, so deliberate, they leave your opponent speechless. Because respect isn't demanded, it's commanded. Stay with me, and you'll see how silence, when used with precision, can humble anyone who dares to test it. As we step into the first chapter, imagine standing in a room where someone suddenly throws a careless comment your way, a smirk, a tone, a small jab meant to make you flinch. You feel that sting, the heat in your chest, the urge to prove them wrong. But deep down, you know this truth. Rude people feed on reaction. They feed on your reaction, and they only win when you let them see you flinch. The Stoics understood this long ago. The real victory lies in stillness, in control. In one calm sentence that ends the battle before it begins. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. It sounds simple, but say it with composure, and you'll see its strength. You're not fighting back, not defending yourself. You're removing their power entirely. Because what they want isn't to be right. They want to feel superior. They want to control how you feel. But when you refuse to react, you take that power from them without lifting a finger. I learned this lesson through experience. Years ago, I started a project that meant everything to me. I poured time, focus, and sleepless nights into it. When I told a friend, he laughed and said, "That's a waste of time. You really think anyone's going to care?" The old me would have argued, listing all the reasons he was wrong. I would have tried to prove the value of my dream. But I caught myself. Why was I explaining myself to someone who had never built anything? Why was I handing him the keys to my peace? So, I smiled and said, "You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it." Then I changed the subject. And that silence that followed, it was heavy. He had nothing left to say, because I didn't give him what he came for. No defense, no anger, just control. And in that quiet, I realized something powerful. The moment you stop defending yourself, you stop giving others permission to define you. That's the Stoic way. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, control begins where reaction ends. Realize this, and you will find strength. When you stop letting other people's opinions disturb your mind, you free yourself. Most people who criticize you aren't doing better than you. They're just louder. Their insults are often a reflection of their insecurity, not your reality. The more they talk, the more they reveal themselves. So, when you stay calm, it unsettles them. You remind them of what they lack, control. You'll face this everywhere. A co-worker mocking your ideas, a family member judging your choices, someone online trying to provoke you. Let them talk. You don't owe a reaction. You don't owe an explanation. Just breathe, stay steady, and if you must respond, do it with grace. You're entitled to your opinion, and I'm entitled to ignore it. Then walk away. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you're building strength. Every time you stay calm instead of angry, you're training your mind to rise above smallness. True calm isn't the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. The Stoics didn't chase validation, they lived by principle. They knew that arguing with fools only drags you down to their level. When you remain composed, you reveal who truly holds power. Remember this: a lion doesn't lose sleep over the opinions of sheep. Your focus is your fortress. Guard it. Don't waste energy proving yourself to people who wouldn't understand your vision, even if you explained it perfectly. Disrespect only works when you allow it to. The moment you stop reacting, it dies in silence. So, the next time someone tests your calm, don't fight, don't defend, don't shrink. Smile. Let their words fall empty. Because true power isn't in shouting louder, it's in standing so still that their chaos breaks against your peace. And that, right there, is how you make disrespect regret ever meeting you. Moving into the second chapter, picture this. You're in a room full of people, voices bouncing off the walls, laughter spilling from every corner. And then it happens. Someone, loud and smug, decides to make you the target of their amusement. Their tone drips with arrogance, their words designed to humiliate, not to joke. Everyone laughs, not because it's funny, but because it's loud. And in that moment, the air thickens with something unspoken, a test. They want to see if you'll crumble or rise. That's where this line becomes your quiet sword, sharp, clean, and final. If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke. It sounds playful, it even makes people laugh. But beneath the humor lies precision. You're not insulting them, you're reflecting their emptiness back at them. It's a mirror, one that forces them to see the truth they've been hiding from. People who thrive on mockery usually have nothing valuable to say. They mistake sarcasm for intelligence and volume for dominance. But when you drop this line calmly with poise, the balance shifts. Their laughter dies, the mask slips, and they're left standing in silence, realizing that for once their words have met something stronger: composure. I remember the day I learned this. Back in school, there was a classmate. Let's call him Ryan. He wasn't particularly clever, funny, or successful, but he carried himself like he was. His confidence wasn't born from knowledge, it was born from noise. His talent was humiliation, making others feel small so he could feel big. One afternoon, we were in a group discussion. I was explaining something simple, nothing grand. But halfway through, Ryan interrupted, smirking. "Oh yeah, because you're such a genius, right?" His tone was soaked in arrogance, and as the others laughed, I could feel the room tilt. In moments like that, you have two choices: play their game or end it. So I smiled, looked at him, steady, unbothered, and said, "Ryan, if I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke." Silence. Someone choked on their drink. Another whispered, "Oh, damn." And Ryan just sat there, shifting in his seat, looking for a comeback that never came. That's when I understood. Loud people aren't always strong, and confidence without substance collapses the moment it's confronted with calm truth. Epictetus once said, "Any person capable of angering you becomes your master." The same is true for mockery. The one who makes you react controls you. But when you respond with serenity, you remind the world who's really in charge. This line works because it doesn't attack, it reveals. You're not calling anyone stupid. You're exposing that they've contributed nothing of value. It turns their own weapon back on them, not through aggression, but through elegance. And that's the beauty of Stoic power. It's quiet, but it echoes. People who mock others usually wear masks made of insecurity. They think their sarcasm makes them sharp, when in truth, it's a shield for weakness. They ridicule because it's easier than creating, easier than thinking deeply, easier than being kind. And when you meet that kind of person with composure, you don't just disarm them, you dissolve them. So the next time someone interrupts you with that smug grin, pause. Don't rush to defend your point. Don't let them steal your focus. Smile. Deliver your line with calm certainty. If I had $1 for every smart thing you said, I'd be broke. And then move on. Because the true strike isn't in the words, it's in your tone, your timing, your unshakable stillness. This kind of confidence doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from understanding that you don't need to shout to be heard, that you don't need to fight to win. In a world obsessed with noise, the person who can stay silent until the perfect moment speaks volumes. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay. When you delay reaction, you create clarity, and clarity always conquers chaos. In restraint, you find armor. In patience, you sharpen the mind." So, when the loud ones try to drown you out, don't match their volume, match their emptiness with calm. Let your words slice clean through their performance. Because that's what this line is, a performance ender. A reminder that respect isn't claimed through arrogance, it's earned through presence. And once you've mastered this, you'll see a deeper truth. Every moment of disrespect is an invitation to rise, to refine, to respond with elegance. Because when you control the room without raising your voice, you've already won. As we move forward, remember this: wisdom doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through a calm smile that says more than 1,000 arguments ever could. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine walking into a conversation where the air already feels heavy. You haven't said a word, yet someone's ready to challenge you, not because they disagree, but because they need control. They interrupt, they mock, they twist every sentence into a contest. You try to stay calm, but they feed on chaos. Some people don't argue to find truth, they argue to feed their ego. Their goal isn't resolution, it's domination. And when you engage, you become part of their performance. This is where the power of one simple sentence changes everything. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. It's not just a comeback, it's a declaration of peace with yourself and war against nonsense. It tells them, I see your game, and I won't play it. Because let's be honest, there are people who confuse rudeness for honesty, cruelty for confidence, and arrogance for strength. They say things like, I'm just being real, when what they're really being is unkind. These are the ones who talk over you, who twist your words, who turn every discussion into a battlefield. To them, being right isn't about reason, it's about volume. And here's the truth. Arguing with someone who feeds on disrespect is like wrestling in the mud with a pig. You both get dirty, but only one of you enjoys it. I learned this lesson years ago at work. There was a colleague, let's call him Jake. Jake wasn't just rude, he thrived on it. He talked over people, dismissed ideas, and laced every sentence with passive aggression. It wasn't enough for him to disagree. He needed to make others feel small while doing it. One afternoon during a team meeting, I suggested a small improvement to a project. Nothing major, just an idea. Before I could finish, Jake rolled his eyes and said, Yeah, because you're such an expert, right? The room went silent. His tone wasn't just disrespectful, it was designed to embarrass. A few years earlier, I would have taken the bait. I would have explained, justified, maybe even raised my voice. But that day, I didn't. I leaned back, took a breath, and said calmly, "I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect." Then I went quiet. The silence that followed was electric. You could feel everyone watching. Jake froze. He couldn't say a word, because whatever came out next would only prove me right. If he argued, he'd expose himself. If he backed down, he'd look weak. So he sat there, trapped in the mirror I'd just held up to him. That's what this line does. It reflects, not attacks. You're not calling them names, you're describing their behavior. And when truth is spoken calmly, it hits harder than any insult ever could. From that day on, Jake never tried it again. Not because I intimidated him, but because I refused to be his entertainment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what this line embodies. It's not about winning the argument, it's about mastering the reaction, because when you stop feeding someone's disrespect, they starve. People like Jake thrive on reaction. Your anger is their applause, your defensiveness is their reward. But when you respond with calm indifference, when you strip away the drama and give them nothing, they crumble. Because control is only real when you stop giving it away. The Stoics taught that we should never fight battles unworthy of our peace. Not every insult deserves an answer. Not every provocation deserves a performance. You don't need to explain, justify, or prove yourself to someone who's already made it their mission not to understand you. So, the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember this: they can't fight without your participation. Smile, say your line, and walk away. I don't argue with people who thrive on disrespect. That's not weakness, it's mastery. Because here's the quiet secret of power. It's not about control over others. It's about control over yourself. The calm person in the room always has the advantage. When you stay composed, their chaos becomes their own prison, and as you walk away, you'll notice something profound. The noise fades, the energy shifts. You don't feel smaller for leaving, you feel lighter, stronger, because you chose peace over pride. Seneca once said, "The greatest victory is to conquer oneself." That's what this is. Self-conquest in motion. You're not silencing them for approval, you're silencing them for your sanity. So the next time someone tries to bait you with disrespect, remember, you don't owe them your energy. You don't owe them your reaction. Your silence, your stillness, your composure, that's your statement. And when you rise from that moment untouched, they'll understand something they never expected. You can't win against someone who refuses to play. From here, picture the kind of person who walks into every room like they own it, the one who believes arrogance equals strength, that belittling others proves confidence. They roll their eyes when someone speaks, mock mistakes, and use sarcasm as a weapon. You've seen them. Maybe you've even worked with them. They think their attitude makes them powerful. But the truth, that behavior is a one-way ticket to nowhere. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. It's not just a comeback, it's a mirror. And when you hold it up to them, they see what they've been running from, their own smallness. Rude people confuse hostility with honesty. They think being dismissive makes them dominant, but it only exposes their insecurity. Stoic philosophy teaches that arrogance is the mask of the weak. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." Those who react without reflection live as slaves to emotion. And arrogance is just anger in disguise, an untrained reaction seeking control. I remember a man like that. Let's call him Mark. I worked with him years ago. Mark made rudeness his brand. If you made a mistake, he'd sigh loudly. If you shared an idea, he'd shut it down before hearing the end. He believed making others feel small made him look big. His words dripped with sarcasm, his smirk a challenge no one dared to answer. People tolerated him. That's what the arrogant count on, your silence. One day, during a meeting, he snapped at a co-worker. Maybe if you actually knew what you were talking about, we wouldn't be wasting time. The room went still. You could feel the discomfort tighten like a noose. No one spoke, and I realized that silence, the silence of decent people, is what keeps arrogance alive. So I looked at him, calm, direct. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. He smirked at first, brushing it off. But I watched his expression change. His laughter stopped. The meeting moved on, but he didn't. He sat there quieter, smaller, because somewhere deep down he knew the truth had hit him harder than any insult could. Months later, promotions were announced. Mark's name wasn't on the list. No one was surprised. Because here's the lesson. Talent may open doors, but character decides who stays inside. You can be skilled, but if people can't stand working with you, your success will crumble under the weight of your own ego. That's why this line works. It doesn't humiliate. It awakens. It forces reflection. You're not attacking who they are. You're confronting what they've become. It turns the mirror toward their future and makes them ask, where is this attitude taking me? The truth is, it's not taking them anywhere. Disrespect may win attention for a moment, but it never earns admiration. It's a short-term illusion that costs long-term respect. The Stoics would call this self-sabotage, when one's impulses destroy their own progress. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." In other words, stop talking about greatness while acting beneath it. So the next time you face someone who hides cruelty behind confidence, remember, you don't need to yell to make a point. Say it once, calm and clear. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. Then walk away. Let silence do the rest. Because silence after truth is louder than any argument, and when you leave, something shifts. The room exhales. The arrogant one, for the first time, sits with the weight of their own reflection. Life has a way of humbling those who think they're untouchable. You don't have to defeat them, life eventually does. That's the Stoic way, to speak not from anger, but from clarity. To stand tall without shouting. To remind the arrogant that every act of disrespect is just another step away from wisdom, peace, and purpose. So when you meet someone like Mark, someone who mistakes cruelty for power, don't argue, don't stoop, just look them in the eye and say it. Your attitude isn't going to get you very far in life. Then walk away knowing something they don't. Time will prove you right. At this stage, imagine someone throwing their words like small stones, meant not to hurt you, but to make you react. Their tone is sharp, their smirk calculated. You feel that familiar pull inside, the one that whispers, say something. But here's the truth. Rude people don't want resolution. They want control. They feed on your reaction, and the moment you argue, they've already won. That's when you draw your line in silence. This conversation was over before it even started. It's not just a comeback. It's a calm strike, a verbal checkmate. You're not fighting. You're refusing to enter the arena. You're saying, your noise doesn't deserve my peace. Because people who thrive on conflict can't stand indifference. They expect anger, they expect you to fight back. But when you stay composed, you steal their energy without saying another word. I've seen this work in real time. A few years ago, I had a co-worker, let's call him Jake. He was the kind of man who could find a problem in anything, always criticizing, always condescending, never contributing. During one meeting, I shared an idea for improving a process. Before I could finish, Jake smirked and said, "Yeah, or we could just do it the right way instead." The room froze. He wanted a fight, the kind that would make him feel powerful. But that day, I didn't give it to him. I looked at him calmly and said, "This conversation was over before it even started." Then I turned back to my work. For once his words echoed back at him, and nothing returned. He wanted a reaction. He got stillness. He tried to say something, but there was nothing left to say. Because when you refuse to engage, the fight ends before it begins. And that's exactly why this line works. It turns their attempt at control into proof of their weakness. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The Stoics believed that our strength lies in our response, not in the noise around us. When you stop defending yourself, you start defining yourself. Calmness becomes your armor. Silence becomes your weapon. Not every battle is worth your peace. Not every insult deserves your energy. The moment you argue with someone who thrives on disrespect, you descend to their level. But when you choose calm withdrawal, you rise above it. You remind them, without saying it, that their opinion is irrelevant. So when someone tries to bait you into an argument, pause. Don't fight. Don't explain. Don't give them the gift of your reaction. Say it once, steady and certain. This conversation was over before it even started. Then walk away. Because when you refuse to engage, you don't just win the moment, you master it. Entering this next chapter, imagine someone throwing words at you, not to communicate, but to control. They don't want understanding, they want reaction. Their comments aren't advice, they're daggers wrapped in sarcasm. And most of the time, they're not even thinking deeply about what they say. They just want to feel important for a moment. But here's where you take their power away, with a calm, almost casual strike. "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." It sounds light, almost humorous, but it's devastating. Because behind that calm tone lies one clear message. Your opinion has no value here. It acknowledges their attempt just enough to dismiss it completely. You're not defending, not attacking, just erasing. And that erasure hurts more than any insult could. People who disrespect you want to live rent-free in your head. They want their words to echo after the conversation is over. They want you to replay what they said, doubt yourself, shrink a little inside. But when you say this line, you make it clear that their words won't last a second in your mind. You're telling them you just wasted your breath. That realization hits harder than anger. Because they expected emotion, not indifference. They came looking for a fight and instead met someone who doesn't care enough to remember them. That silence after your response, that's them realizing they don't matter. I've used this in real life, and it's remarkable how quickly it flips the room. Imagine this, you're at work, presenting an idea. There's always one person, the self-appointed critic, who loves to shoot things down. You explain your concept, and they smirk, saying, "Interesting, but let's leave the serious ideas to the experts." Normally, you'd feel that sting and start defending yourself. But not this time. You look at them calmly and say, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." Then you continue speaking as if they never said a word. The energy in the room shifts. They look foolish, exposed, irrelevant. Because nothing makes a rude person feel smaller than being treated as unimportant. This is what emotional mastery looks like, grace without effort. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." And that's exactly what this line does. It breaks their pattern. Instead of reacting to their negativity, you respond with detachment. You're not feeding their ego. You're starving it. This approach works everywhere. When a family member mocks your choices, say it lightly and move on. When a friend hides criticism behind humor, smile and erase it. When a stranger online throws an insult, reply, "Thanks for your input. I'll forget it in 3 seconds." Then live up to that promise. Because the moment you stop carrying their words, you reclaim your peace. You're teaching your mind to filter noise, to separate what deserves energy from what doesn't. And every time you do, you become harder to shake, harder to offend, harder to control. Seneca once wrote, "He who angers you conquers you, but when you can laugh, stay calm, and forget the insult before it lands, you conquer them instead." That's the quiet strength Stoicism is built on, not the absence of emotion, but the discipline to decide where your emotion goes. So the next time someone tries to drag you into their chaos, don't fight. Don't defend. Don't even remember. Smile, breathe, and say, "Thanks for your input. I'll be sure to forget it immediately." Peace isn't passive. It's the art of choosing what deserves a reaction. It's about mastery. And when you can forget an insult before it touches you, that's when you've truly won. Entering this final chapter, imagine being face to face with someone who seems addicted to conflict. You can feel it before they even speak, the tension, the arrogance, the need to provoke. They interrupt, mock, and twist words into weapons just to pull you into their storm. They don't seek truth or understanding. They seek control. Every rude comment is a test to see if they can shake you. But here's the truth. The person who needs to humiliate others to feel powerful has already lost control of themselves. That's why this line cuts deeper than any insult. You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself. It's calm, sharp, effortless. You don't yell, you don't explain, you simply hand them a mirror. Because when someone thrives on disrespect, what they fear most is self-awareness. And this line exposes it. It flips the energy instantly. The moment you say it, they go from aggressor to performer, realizing they've been the joke all along. You're not attacking, you're describing. And truth, spoken with composure, wounds louder than anger ever could. Rude people thrive on reaction. They need your attention like fire needs air. They want to see you frustrated, defensive, or angry, because your reaction validates their illusion of power. But when you respond with poise, when you acknowledge them just long enough to dismiss them, you starve that illusion. They lose oxygen. They lose control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike your enemy." The Stoics understood that control is not about dominating others, it's about mastering yourself. That's what this line does. It protects your peace without lowering your dignity. I once watched this principle unfold in a meeting. A loud co-worker, always sarcastic, always right, mocked someone mid-presentation, trying to look clever. The room went silent. Everyone froze. The presenter didn't argue, didn't flinch. She just looked at him and said calmly, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then she continued speaking. The silence that followed was electric. No one laughed. No one moved. The man who thought he owned the room was suddenly exposed, his power stripped by 5 quiet words. And that's the beauty of this response. It doesn't humiliate, it reveals. Because arrogance only thrives in the dark. Bring it into the light, and it withers. Seneca wrote, "He who angers you conquers you." When you stay calm, you flip that truth. You become the conqueror. Rude people expect chaos. They feed on emotional energy. But indifference is the one force they can't absorb. The calmer you are, the louder their foolishness becomes. This line works anywhere. At work, when a colleague tries to belittle your ideas, pause, look at them, and say it softly. With family, when someone hides bitterness behind advice, smile and say it lightly. When a friend throws passive-aggressive insults, laugh and say, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then move on. Even online, when a stranger tries to bait you, type it once and log off. Because you don't need to fight fire, you just need to remove the fuel. The psychology is simple. People who disrespect others believe they're winning. They think control is taken, not earned. But when you refuse to play, you show them what real power looks like: self-command. They can only manipulate you if you care. The moment you stop caring, they lose every weapon they thought they had. And what happens next is subtle but profound. You walk away lighter, untouched. They sit with the echo of your calmness, realizing their behavior didn't land. You didn't absorb it, you reflected it. That realization burns quietly, because truth always does. When you call someone out without emotion, you don't just disarm them, you educate them. You force them to see that disrespect doesn't make them bold, it makes them small. Maybe they'll never admit it aloud, but they'll think twice before trying it again. This is the Stoic way: to rise above mockery with grace, to choose calm over chaos, to turn every insult into a reflection of the one who threw it. Because strength isn't loud, it's measured, it's silent, it's precise. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, don't match their noise. Don't try to prove your worth to someone who's lost theirs. Smile slightly, stay composed, and say, "You seem really dedicated to making a fool of yourself." Then walk away, because your calmness is the end of their game. Your silence is their defeat. Remember this: you don't have to fight every fool you meet. Some people reveal themselves perfectly if you just let them speak. Power isn't proved through reply, but through indifference. At the end of the day, dealing with rude people is not about shouting louder or proving your worth. It is about showing that you cannot be moved by their noise. You do not need to argue, explain, or lower yourself to their level. True strength is calm. When you stay composed, respond with clarity, and walk away with peace intact, you reveal a power that silence protects. Disrespect only survives when you feed it with reaction. The moment you stop responding, it fades away. The Stoics taught that no one can disturb your peace unless you allow it. When you master your emotions, you master the moment. Let your calm be your armor, and your silence your quiet victory. The one who stays steady always wins, not by fighting, but by refusal to lose control. So when someone disrespects you, breathe and remember your worth. You owe no one a reaction. You owe yourself peace. Comment, choose calm below, and subscribe for more Stoic lessons on strength and emotional mastery. Stay grounded, stay wise, and keep your peace unshaken.